Hello everyone. We have now surpassed the 1-month mark since the Idaho student murders took place, yet we still have no suspects, yet alone a killer caught. And that doesn't look good. So today I thought would be a good time to do an update video for you all on all of the new information that's come out in the last week or so since I've done an update on this, and there has been quite a bit. First off, police have released a description of a vehicle that they're very interested in. The vehicle in question is a white 2011 to 2013 Hyundai Elantra, and this vehicle was last seen near the home on the day of the murders. The license plate information is unknown currently, but police are saying that the occupants of the vehicle may have critical information to share regarding the case. Now, that doesn't mean that the police think that the people that are in this vehicle are guilty of, murdering any of the students. They're basically just saying that the people in this vehicle may have seen something because they were in the direct vicinity. They may have seen someone, running away from the scene or heard suspicious noises or screaming or something. It doesn't directly mean that they think that these people are guilty. Now, the way that police are looking so hard for this vehicle makes me think that they definitely think that they've seen something very critical or heard something very critical, or that they may possibly be involved. Now, that's alleged, obviously. You think that the people that own this vehicle would have to know that they are being looked for. Why haven't they come forward and cleared themselves and just told police, oh, I didn't see anything or whatever? Nothing. Now, I do know that there are people in this world that don't know about this case. I tell my coworkers about cases all the time and they have no clue what I'm talking about. So I'm not saying that everybody in the world knows about this case, but this case has been blasted everywhere. You'd think some way, somehow, someone that even knows someone that drives a white vehicle that they're looking for would be like, hey, weren't you in Moscow yesterday? Are you the vehicle that they're looking for? You'd think that someone would even tell them, even if they didn't know directly. In my opinion, it's a little strange that this person or people haven't come forward yet. However, on Tuesday, we did get a big break regarding this vehicle. Police collected 8 hours of surveillance footage from a gas station in Moscow after a worker there claims to have seen the vehicle passing by at 3:45 a.m. the night of the murders. From what I understand, the worker ended up hearing about the murders happening. Everyone in Moscow knows at this point. So they ended up going through the footage at the gas station that they work at. And once they got to, the 3 to 4 a.m. mark, they ended up finding this vehicle passing the gas station.
Computer screen showing a white car on a highway in Moscow, Idaho. The clerk who reviewed the security footage said it drove by around 3:45 in the morning. There you see the photo of the timestamp. You did just see that. Detectives collected 8 hours of surveillance video from this gas station. An overnight manager told Fox News Digital that she had been reviewing the tapes over the past few days during her graveyard shift. She says she saw a white sedan driving by real quick at 3:45 in the morning. That's around the same time the 4 students were killed. The manager said once she saw the car on the tape, she took a photo and sent it to police. Detectives arrived around 11 a.m. this morning to collect the surveillance video.
Now, none of this footage has been released yet. Police have went and collected it, obviously. But the worker did take a photo of the screen, and now we do have this photo of the vehicle driving by, the alleged vehicle. Now, hopefully, since police have this information, they can get a license plate. Maybe they can see the person inside. Hopefully, they get something from this that's actually critical and useful that, something can come of this vehicle. Moscow police have now also started redirecting all of the calls towards this case to an FBI call center. And they're doing this because the FBI has better resources to handle this mass amount of calls way better than this, small town police station does. And I say this because they were receiving upwards of 2,770 calls and tips, nearly 2,700 emails, and then there's like a bunch more other ways that you can, contact the FBI and the police on this case. And it's also in the thousands. It's crazy. There's so much information being pumped into this case, which again is shocking that we don't even have a suspect yet, or at least a suspect that the public knows about. The police may have one that they're just not saying. Fox News has also reported that the U.S. Customs and Border Protection has been tasked to search for cars that cross the border points between Canada and the U.S. Because you do have to remember that Idaho does border Canada, specifically British Columbia. And if you go up into British Columbia, it's for the most part just wilderness. Now again, these murders happened a month ago. If the killer isn't from Moscow or they did leave Moscow right after, they could be anywhere in the world right now. Especially if they escaped into Canada. There is so much wilderness up here. It would be really hard to find someone that's off the grid. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible, but again, so much wilderness. The population of Canada is so small to the US, I don't think people understand that. Most of our country is uninhabited. It's just wilderness. So there's so many places someone could hide. Now it's the dead of winter. So would it be very hard? Yes, it would be very hard to live up here in the dead of winter in the wilderness, unless you're skilled in doing something like that, or the person went somewhere else. We also have new information that came out that the victim's hands were bagged. Now, why would this happen? This happens to protect DNA evidence. If the crime scene is as bloody and gruesome as law enforcement says it is, and there are as many defensive wounds as law enforcement in the corner do say there are, there's a very high chance that one of them was able to scratch the killer, and then they have, DNA under their nails from the killer. The killer could have cut themselves during the attack and they have blood on them. You never know. So it's very good that they did bag their hands, and hopefully some of that evidence that they sent off to be analyzed was from under the victim's nails. Hopefully something comes back DNA-wise from that. Now, this one I found very interesting because fellow YouTuber and former homicide detective Chris McDonough from the Interview Room actually made a video where him and his wife went to Moscow, and they went over to 1122 King Road, King Road, and they ended up walking around the perimeter of the house, around the streets in the nearby area, and, looking at the buildings and stuff in the nearby area, and they filmed it all. And when they did this, they ended up finding something that could have been very critical that the police missed. Now, I watched this video, weeks ago when Chris put it out, and the moment that he said he walked by the garbage cans at the front of the home and found a glove there, I was shocked police didn't find this, one, and two, I was shocked nothing came out, in the news or anything that said anything about it until now. Now people are talking about it. Chris ended up finding a black glove behind, the police tape that was near these garbage cans in, the proximity of 1122 King Road. Now, I find this interesting. Police didn't find this because there was talk of police, looking in other trash cans around in the area. So it's interesting they didn't, go through everything on the property. Now, Chris ended up telling an officer that was there at the time, and this officer bagged it up and it was sent off. But now the news is reporting that this might be a vital piece of evidence. Could Chris McDonough have just cracked this case? We don't know, but hopefully something comes of this glove. It literally took a former homicide detective that was there filming a YouTube video to find it.
Well, I can't really tell what type of glove it is, if it's a male, female. And obviously the significance may be nothing, but it also could be very significant. There appeared to have snow on it, so I assumed it had been there for quite some time, at least before the earlier snowfall. I later learned there are photographs of that glove floating online, and you can clearly see it there. And I was unaware of those at the time. And when I told the officer, I waved him over and I said, "Hey, you need to come take a look at this." And he walked over and his first words were, "Oh, wow." And I said, "Yeah," and I told him, I said, "Hey, I'm a retired homicide guy. You probably want to collect that, get your evidence people out here to do that." And he took some photographs of it, and I assumed that they, had collected it. I videotaped them doing it just in case, at least taking the photographs.
We also have a neighbor that is now claiming to have heard screaming the night of the murders. 30-year-old Inan Harsh claims to have left work as a chef that night, and he got home around 1:30 a.m. He played video games, got ready for bed, all that stuff you do after work, and as he was falling asleep around 4 a.m., he heard the sound of what he thought was a scream, but at the time he dismissed it as, just maybe people partying around, because, again, this is a college town, this is a party area, and people party and people scream a lot, apparently, because if you do remember, 1122 King Road is said to have been a party house. If you also remember my video I did on the 911 calls in Moscow, if you didn't see it, I definitely recommend watching it. I'll have a link down below. But there are so many 911 calls of people screaming in Moscow in the middle of the night, in the daytime. There are so many reports of people calling 911 saying they hear screaming. So it doesn't seem like it's an uncommon occurrence in Moscow to just hear people screaming and partying in the middle of the night. So it does make sense that he did dismiss this, while he was falling asleep. And it wasn't until the murders happened and he really thought back on it that he thought it might be crucial. However, I did find this strange. According to news sources, Inan posted on Facebook on the 15th saying, and I quote, "4 killed and stabbing across street. No screams, no evidence, no trace. So like professional killers, ? But why? On 3 sorority girls. Shit doesn't make sense. So now Anon was contradicting himself because on the 15th, 2 days after the murders happened, he's saying there were no screams. Yet he then went and told police he heard screams. So now people are questioning his credibility. On top of that, there were also neighbors, allegedly they reported seeing the front door of 1122 King Road open. Yet the police chief himself claims that he has no knowledge of anyone being interviewed saying that the front door was opened. You think the police would know this and that would be, big information that they would talk about, that the front door on the first floor was opened. So now we have multiple neighbors with confusing stories. What is true? What's not true? I don't really know, but I want to trust the police on this one. You think that this is something they would say and not be like, oh no one's told us this. Yet there also is the statement from the police saying that there was a door open. So was that the sliding door then? Because everyone's saying that it was the front door open, but now police are saying they have no information from interviewing anyone that the front door on the first floor was open. It's all so damn confusing. We now also have body cam footage from a police officer in the field behind the Sigma Chi house, which is the frat house that Ethan was a part of that's literally only a couple houses down from where the murders took place. On 3:01 a.m. on the night of the murders, police were called to an alcohol-related incident. And I did go back and I looked and I found the 911 call. I have it up on the screen for you right now. As you can see, 3:01 a.m., Taylor Avenue, which is the street that backs Sigma Chi, that's off of King Road. Officers requested a case and a report was taken. Now this is the exact 911 call report from this footage.
What you guys all have to drink tonight?
Couple beers.
Beers?
Yeah.
Hard liquor or anything like that?
No.
Hey, is that beer?
What's up?
Is that beer in your hand?
Yeah, I'm 21.
You got the ID on you?
I don't.
Okay.
I'll take it back to my apartment if you need.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
You got a driver's license?
I don't have it.
What? No, in general.
I do have one, yeah.
What state is it through?
Idaho.
Idaho? Okay, perfect. I'm just going to check if everything's good. Since they're not open, I'll let you hang on to them.
Okay.
So-
Will I get charged with anything?
No,
or-
no.
Okay. Appreciate
But
it.
it's just enough for me to stop, check, make sure you're 21,
No worries.
walking
Yeah,
around
I
here
get
in
it.
public. Hey, come here. You guys all turned around and walked away.
I thought it was just like a fake person, honestly. Yeah, like
How many fake people are out here that you've experienced?
How's your night going?
Oh, pretty good.
That's good.
Just trying to stay warm.
Is that y'all's car right there?
Gas. They downgraded us from patrol cars.
Gotcha.
They gave us hybrids to save on fuel.
There you go.
Smart move, smart move.
That lets me know that actually exists. I'll catch you this, all right?
No worries.
Why don't you guys all have to drink tonight?
Couple beers.
Beers?
Yeah.
Hard liquor or anything like that?
No.
Now, this was a alcohol-related incident. It has nothing to do with the murders, but they did release this footage, and now you can see at 3 a.m. what was happening literally just a couple houses down from where the murders were thought to have taken place. You can still see that there were people out wandering around drunk at this time. It wasn't like everyone was asleep at 3 a.m. Again, this is a party town, a college town. People are staying up till all hours of the night drinking, running around the streets. It was a Saturday. So when we think that the girls and Ethan went home and fell asleep and it was a quiet street, not a peep was heard, and we wonder why people didn't hear screams or this or that, how this killer did this gives us a great visual of how that night was going. There were still people running around drunk and police in the area at 3 a.m. There were cops at 3 a.m., a couple houses down. And it's estimated that they were all murdered between around, I think it's 3 to 5 a.m. So this makes me wonder if they were definitely then killed farther away from 3 a.m., maybe closer to 4 or 5 a.m. If police were out there at 3 a.m., you don't think the killer would be murdering them at that time. You think that they would definitely be scoping out the area, making sure it was a good time to go in. You'd also think that the killer would be scoping out the area, making sure no one's drunk stumbling around in the area so that they'd have a quick getaway and no one would see them. So I don't think, in my opinion, the murders took place then around 3 a.m. I think it was later in the night then, maybe 3:30, 4 o'clock, somewhere later that direction of time. Again, I think it would be too risky for this killer to go in at 3 a.m. when there's literally cops like 2 doors down. that are, catching drunk kids. Speaking of police, the police also went into 1122 King Road to remove some of the students' belongings to give back to their families. And this has caused a lot of speculation. It makes people wonder, does this mean they're done investigating the crime scene? I've seen people question, what if something comes up and they need to go back in because now they've moved everything around, they're not going to be able to go in and say, oh, there's blood splatter here, and this evidence was here because everything is disturbed now. Now, I have seen it stated that they have taken 113 pieces of evidence, 4,000 photos, and they've also taken 3D scans of the home. I'm assuming they use something like a Matterport camera or something like that. These cameras, they use a lot in real estate photography as well. You place the camera in the room, it does a 360, and it literally scans the entire room, and you can walk through a home basically at that point on a 3D scan, kind of like The Sims. You can literally go floor to floor, room to room, walk around. It's all mapped out. You can walk up the steps basically to go to the next floors. Everything is mapped out. Kind of like a Sims home. You could think of it that way if you need like a good visual of it. So knowing that, police, if they do need to go back and look at stuff, they can go back and literally look at these rooms in real time, not just at a photo, and they can zoom in on certain spots from different angles of different points of view of the home and see things if they really need to. So I can see after a month them clearing stuff out now and saying, okay, we've done everything we could in the home. Let's move on from this now and start looking at more information, other evidence elsewhere, and focusing the resources at other spots. So I don't think they're going to have that big of a deal if they need to go and look back at things. This, however, I do find strange. I don't know if this person is a reporter or just a random person that's standing outside the home recording stuff for, I don't know, YouTube or social media or whatever, but they ended up catching what is thought to be plainclothes officers going into 1122 King Road and then leaving without saying a word. This person's questioning them, asking them things. They don't even look at this person's direction. They get into the vehicles and they leave.
Can you tell us why you're back inside? Can you tell us why we're back inside tonight? Is there anything you can tell us?
Everyone knows that police are going in and out of this residence. It's not a shock if the police go back. So I don't know why they'd be doing it kind of undercover, especially when there are people standing around still filming the house, so it's not really undercover. It kind of just seems weird in my opinion. I've seen people mention that it's possibly the FBI. I don't know. Maybe they just thought going in plain clothing would bring less attention and buzz to it if they go in like that, other than just having big FBIs all over their clothing. Also the fact that they didn't answer one single question. They didn't even look in the direction of any of the people questioning them. They got in their vehicles and they left. They were there for a reason. They went in on a mission and they left, and they didn't say a word. Let me know how you feel about these plainclothed men going into the home. Now I want to get into more of the interviews and more of the people that are now speaking out. Both Dylan and Bethany, the two surviving roommates, finally have broken their silence, and I'm pretty sure they did this through a letter. I don't think it was directly them at the visual, but both of them also got tattoos to honor their friends that died. Dylan has now been quoted saying, and I quote, "My life was greatly impacted to have known these four beautiful people by people who changed my life in so many ways and made me so happy." Bethany was quoted saying, "Maddie, Kaylee, Xana, and Ethan were truly all one of a kind. They all lit up any room they walked into and were gifts to this world. I wish every day that I could give them all one last hug and say how much I love them." According to People.com, in their letters, Bethany and Dylan remembered specific memories of their friends and called Maddie and Kaylee, who were best friends, the inseparable duo. They called Ethan and Xana, who were dating, the perfect pair and had a loving relationship. Dylan writing, "I know somewhere Xana and Ethan are together, keeping each other company, watching us all and telling us it's okay." That's sad. Hold it together. Maddie's boyfriend, Jake Schreiger, has also broken his silence at a vigil in Post Falls, Idaho, saying, "None of these people deserve this. She was the first person I talked to every morning and the last person I talked to before bed. She was the person I loved most." Speaking of sad things, what I also found very sad is that the university had their graduation, which was the graduation where Kaylee was actually supposed to graduate as well. So speaking of interviews, Xana's mom has been speaking out quite a bit now, and she went on News Nation and ended up telling them that she's been getting her information from literally news reports more than the police have been telling her. And we've pretty much been hearing all of the family members saying this. She also tearfully questioned the storyline of the roommates as well.
I just had a question about the other two roommates who were there on the first floor. And I just wonder, wasn't something heard, or, the surviving roommates that were there, they had to have heard something. They had to have, the dog, something.
Again, at this point, none of the parents seem to know anything at this point more than we do. Law enforcement has been tight-lipped with everyone, including the families. Kaylee's father is still out there doing these interviews, speaking about how little information they're getting as well. His point of view seems to be that police don't want them posting rewards and posters in the town because it'll impact the new enrollment in the school in the new season, which, if so, is pretty fucked up in my opinion, which I understand people not wanting to enroll at the school considering there is a killer in the town possibly that hasn't been caught. And we've seen this in a lot of cases where a murder happens in, the vicinity of a college or at a college. The college or the university seems to try to kind of cover it up, which is really fucked up. I'm really hoping in this case this is not happening. I'm really hoping that. But, this town does thrive on these college students. And if there's no college students coming in, the town is kind of screwed in a way. But again, they're also in danger if this person is out there and they're not caught. So, I guess there is a fine line. But I do think in the end of the day, the student safety and the people in this town's safety and in the country's safety should be held above enrolling in college. Another really interesting thing that Kaylee's father said during an interview was that Kaylee and Maddie's points of damage didn't match. News Nation would then come out saying that Kaylee's injuries were significantly more brutal. Now, does that mean that she was the target of all of this, or does that mean that she fought back the hardest? We don't know. I know people are going to take it like she was the target hearing that, but I don't know. There's just way too many rumors in this case and just way too much speculation on certain things said, and we don't look at the opposite side of it all. It's always just, this was said, so it has to be this, not it could be this or it could be that. I think there needs to be more devil's advocate play in things like this because we don't know. So we can't just say for sure. I think 100% this happened. I want to touch on the whole 911 call being made for an unconscious person because in the first video I made on this case, I was hung up on that and I was very confused by that. Okay, well, there has been this story on social media that one of the girls, Bethany or Dylan, someone seen one of the victims, ran outside and passed out or fainted because of what they seen, and then a neighbor found them, passed out, and called 911, whatever. From everything I've seen, and I've seen other YouTubers have seen, there's nothing to back this claim up. That story seems to be nothing but a rumor. There are no official sources that say this happened. No one has cited any sources to say this has happened. It seems that one person said it, it blew up, and now everyone's saying this is what happened, and that's why it was a call for an unconscious person. Where does that leave us? I don't know, but I did see someone who claims to be a 911 dispatcher say that they use what are called nature codes during calls. Essentially saying that if someone calls 911, the dispatcher picks up and the person on the other end of the line says that the victim or whatever person that's in trouble is unresponsive, they can't say for sure the person is dead. It's going to go under the code of an unconscious person. This 911 dispatcher also said that there is a nature code called stab gunshot penetration trauma that could also be used, but if they don't know the cause of the injuries, they're not going to use that code. So if Bethany or Dylan did see one of their roommates inside and there was blood all over them and they weren't responding, the call isn't going to be put under the code of, person lying on the floor covered in blood. It's going to be put under unconscious person because the roommates didn't know what happened at that point. They're just calling saying, my friend's covered in blood, blah, 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 this, that, another thing. They don't know they've been stabbed to death. So it's not going to be under that code. Now, hearing that makes so much more sense to me. It seems a lot more logical. Now, if anyone out there watching this video is a 911 dispatcher and can also back that up and say that is true, whatever, let me know, or say it's not true if it's not true, but that sounds plausible to me. Way more plausible than this whole neighbor story that has nothing backing it up. Hearing all of that new information, how do you all feel? Clearly, there is still stuff happening. I keep seeing people saying, oh, it's going to turn into a cold case. There seems to be still so much movement in this case. It's not like nothing's happening. I've seen cold cases before. It's usually not this much information with a cold case. There's also a whole lot more I've seen on social media that I'm not talking about in this video today regarding people that are suspicious, this or that. I'm not going to talk about that stuff. I don't want to feed into that right now. Does it seem kind of sketchy if some of the things people are saying are true? Yeah, it does seem definitely sketchy, but I don't see law enforcement talking about it. I don't see the news talking about it right now. I don't want to bring up these rumors because once again, like I just said, there's this whole neighbor rumor that has no substance, and that's kind of seeming to be, thrown away. And so all of this other stuff just seems to be rumors at this moment. I haven't found any, definitive evidence. I don't see anyone else talking about this stuff. So clearly they haven't found definitive evidence on it either. So I'm not going to waste my time or your time talking about it because I don't think it's going to help the case at all. I don't think it's worth talking about right now. And I think it's going to harm the case in the long run. But how do you all feel about these updates? Is there anything that you think I missed that's actually factual? Let me know down below. Or if there's anything else in this case or any other cases you want me to create videos on as well, let me know below. Of course, I'm going to continue to bring you all updates on this case. I think I'm going to kind of stick to a format like this where I'm kind of leaving a little bit of time in between updates. Now, I could take that back if something major pops up that's huge. But I don't want to just jump and create a video on some of these updates right away because they may just be dismissed the next day. And I think we're just wasting all of our times. But yeah, if you want to join along in discussing this case, I'd really appreciate if you hit that subscribe button. It does allow me to continue to create videos like this and continue to talk about these cases, spread the word on these cases. And I also really love having conversations with you all about these cases. With that, I hope you all stay safe out there, lock your windows and doors, and I hope to see you in the next video.